Jake Morrison stood in the control room of the biggest ship in the Caltharian Empire fleet and watched the stars on the giant screen in front of him. He had been a commander for 15 years and had seen many strange things in space, but nothing had ever made him feel worried like this. The Empire controlled hundreds of star systems, and their sensors could track anything that moved through space, no matter how small or how far away it was. Amy Rodriguez sat at her station, and her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she checked the sensor readings again and again. She had been working as a sensor officer for 8 years and knew every sound and signal that their equipment could detect. Today something was very wrong, and she could feel her heart beating faster as she looked at the impossible data on her screen. The sensor network that protected the Empire was the most advanced system ever built, and it watched every part of space. Within 50 light years of their territory, thousands of monitoring stations sent information back to the main fleet every second of every day. Nothing could move through their space without being detected and tracked from the moment it entered their territory until it left. Amy turned in her chair and looked at Commander Morrison with worry in her eyes. She had never seen readings like this before and did not know how to explain what the sensors were telling her. The data showed something that should not be possible, according to everything she had learned about space travel and physics. "Sir, we have a big problem," Amy said, and her voice was quiet because she was not sure if she should believe what she was seeing. "The outer monitoring stations are picking up an object that just appeared at the edge of our space. There is no identification signal coming from it, and no energy readings that match anything in our database. We also cannot tell where it came from." Morrison walked over to Amy's station and looked at the numbers and graphs on her screen. In 30 years of military service, he had never heard of anything getting past their detection grid without being noticed. Every ship that entered their space was tracked from millions of miles away and identified long before it could become a threat to any Imperial world. "Show me the path it is taking," Morrison said, and watched as Amy's fingers danced across the controls. The main screen changed and showed a map of local space with all the Imperial worlds and monitoring stations marked in blue light. A red line appeared on the map showing the path of the unknown object. Morrison stared at the line and felt his stomach drop as he realized what he was looking at. The object was moving through space faster than anything the Empire had ever built. It was traveling at speeds that should tear apart any known material and using no detectable form of propulsion. Even more disturbing was the fact that it had somehow passed 17 monitoring stations without triggering a single alarm. Morrison had fought in wars against alien species and rebel groups, but had never encountered technology that was completely invisible to their sensors. The Empire's science division had spent centuries developing detection systems that could identify and track anything that moved through space. Ships could not hide from their sensors, and certainly could not move at the speeds this object was traveling. The red line on the screen showed that the object would pass directly through the heart of Imperial space. Its path would take it near their most important worlds, including the capital planet and the main military shipyards. If this was some kind of weapon or scout from an enemy force, then the Empire was in serious danger. Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the main screen as her image was transmitted from the Imperial Command Center on the capital world. She was a tall woman with gray hair and serious eyes who had commanded the Imperial fleet for over 20 years. Morrison had served under her before and knew that she was one of the smartest military leaders the Empire had ever produced. "Commander Morrison," Admiral Hayes said, and her voice carried the authority of someone who had never lost a battle. "We are tracking the same object from our command center, and our scientists are completely puzzled by what they are seeing. This thing is moving at 40% of light speed without leaving any energy trail that our instruments can detect." Morrison looked at the data streaming across his console and tried to understand how something could move so fast without using any known form of propulsion. Imperial ships needed massive engines and enormous amounts of energy to reach even a fraction of the speed this object was traveling. The technology required to achieve such speeds should produce energy signatures that could be detected from across the galaxy. The object's path will take it through our most protected space, Morrison said as he studied the trajectory data. If this is a weapon or some kind of scout ship from the rebellion, then we need to know immediately what we are dealing with. Admiral Hayes nodded, and Morrison could see the concern in her eyes, even through the transmission. The rebellion had been fighting against the Empire for decades, but had never shown technology that was superior to Imperial science. Their ships were usually older and less advanced than what the Empire could build. This object was completely different from anything either side had ever used in battle. You have permission to take your battle group and intercept this object, Admiral Hayes said. Use the Dominion's Edge and a full escort fleet. If this is some new weapon technology, then we must understand how it works before it can be used against our worlds. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders as he realized he was about to make contact with something that could change the balance of power in the galaxy. The Dominion's Edge was the most powerful ship in the Imperial fleet and carried enough firepower to destroy entire planets. If they were going up against superior technology, then he would need every advantage he could get. Amy, prepare a course to intercept the object, Morrison said, and watched as his sensor officer began calculating the route they would need to take. Contact Captain Taylor on the Void Hunter and tell him to prepare his ship for immediate departure. I want our fastest escorts ready to move within the hour. As the crew prepared for departure, Morrison continued to study the sensor data and tried to find some clue about what they were dealing with. The object appeared to be solid and approximately 2 kilometers long, but showed no signs of the internal systems that every spaceship needed to operate. There were no power sources visible to their scanners, and no evidence of crew quarters or command centers. The more Morrison looked at the data, the more questions he had about what they were chasing. The object did not look like any ship design he had ever seen, and did not behave like anything that followed the normal rules of space travel. It was almost as if someone had taken a giant piece of metal and somehow made it fly through space faster than anything should be able to move. Morrison ordered his crew to begin preparations for what might be the most important mission in Imperial history. They were about to make contact with technology that defied their understanding of physics and could represent either the greatest opportunity or the greatest threat the Empire had ever faced. Whatever was inside that mysterious object would soon change everything they thought they knew about what was possible in the universe. Ben Taylor walked onto the bridge of his ship, the Void Hunter, and immediately felt the tension in the air as his crew prepared for what might be the strangest mission any of them had ever faced. As captain of one of the Empire's fastest destroyers, he had chased smugglers and fought rebel ships, but had never been asked to intercept something that their scientists could not even identify or understand. The Void Hunter was part of Commander Morrison's battle group and was designed to be the first ship to make contact with unknown vessels. Taylor's crew had trained for years to handle first contact situations, but they had always expected to meet alien species or rebel forces that used technology they could recognize and understand. Carla Stevens sat at the sensor station and watched the displays that showed their approach to the intercept point. She had been working as a sensor chief for 12 years and prided herself on being able to identify any ship or object within 100,000 miles of her position. Today, she was looking at something that made no sense according to everything she had learned about space travel. Captain, we are 200,000 kilometers from the target and closing fast, Carla said, and her voice showed the confusion she felt as she studied the sensor readings. Sir, I am getting readings that do not match anything in our computer. Systems. This object appears to be completely solid metal, but it is not made from any alloy that exists in our database. Taylor moved to the tactical station, where Lieutenant Mike Johnson was running continuous scans of the unknown object. Johnson was the best tactical officer Taylor had ever worked with, and could usually identify the class and capabilities of any enemy ship within minutes of first contact. Today, he looked puzzled and concerned as he stared at his displays. "What do you mean when you say it is solid?" Taylor asked, as he looked over Johnson's shoulder at the tactical readouts. "Sir, this is not a ship in any way that we understand ships," Johnson said, and pointed to the structural analysis on his screen. "There are no visible engines anywhere on the hull, and no weapon ports or communication arrays. The entire object appears to be one giant piece of metal that is shaped like a cylinder. It is about 2 kilometers long and half a kilometer wide, but shows no signs of the systems that every spaceship needs to operate." Taylor stared at the tactical display and tried to understand what he was looking at. Every ship he had ever seen had engines for propulsion and weapons for defense and communication systems for talking to other ships. This object had none of those things yet. It was moving through space faster than anything the Empire had ever built. The main screen showed their target. As it came into visual range, and Taylor felt his breath catch in his throat as he saw something that should not exist. The object was a massive dark cylinder that seemed to absorb light instead of reflecting it like normal metal. The surface was completely smooth, with no windows or markings or any signs that intelligent beings had built it. "All stations report ready for contact," Taylor announced to his crew, but kept his eyes fixed on the mysterious cylinder on the screen. "Remember that we are dealing with unknown technology here, so stay alert and be ready for anything." Carla suddenly called out from her station, and her voice was filled with alarm as she watched her sensor displays change in ways she had never seen before. "Captain, the object is slowing down, and it is slowing down very fast. Sir, it is coming to a complete stop." Taylor watched in amazement as the massive cylinder went from traveling at near light speed to being motionless in space in less than 30 seconds. The deceleration forces required to stop that quickly should have destroyed any known material. But the object appeared to be completely undamaged by the sudden change in velocity. "How is that possible?" Johnson asked as he ran calculations on his tactical computer. "The stress forces from that kind of deceleration should have torn apart anything made from normal matter. Whatever that thing is built from, it is stronger than any material we have ever discovered." Commander Morrison's voice came through the communication system, and Taylor could hear the tension in his commander's words. "All ships maintain defensive positions, but do not target the object. We are dealing with technology that we do not understand, and I do not want to start a fight with something that can do what we just witnessed." Taylor ordered his crew to hold their positions as they studied the motionless cylinder that hung in space like it was waiting for something. The object had demonstrated capabilities that defied their understanding of physics and material science. If whoever built it had weapons that were as advanced as their propulsion system, then the Imperial fleet might be facing a threat that could destroy them without effort. "Sir, I am detecting multiple energy sources inside the object," Carla reported as her sensors penetrated deeper into the cylinder's structure. "There are definitely life forms in there, but the energy patterns do not match any technology in our records. Some of the readings look almost primitive compared to what we would expect from beings who can build something like this." Taylor felt more confused as he listened to his sensor chief's report. How could beings with primitive technology build a ship that could travel faster than light without any visible propulsion system? Either their sensors were giving them false information, or they were dealing with something that challenged everything the Empire knew about science and engineering. Mike Johnson looked up from his tactical station with excitement in his voice as he made a discovery that would change everything. Captain, I am picking up a transmission from the object. It is not using any communication protocol that we recognize, but our computers are managing to decode part of the signal. The transmission is coming through on very basic radio frequencies. Taylor felt his heart rate increase as he realized they were about to make first contact with whatever was inside the mysterious cylinder. Put the transmission through the main speakers and see if our translation systems can make sense of what they are saying. The bridge speakers crackled with static and interference before a human voice came through speaking words that no one on the Imperial ship expected to hear. The voice was clear and spoke in a language that sounded almost familiar to the universal standard that all Imperial citizens learned in school. This is Colonel Danny Martinez of the United Earth Colonial Expedition, the voice said, and Taylor felt shock run through his entire body as he heard words that should not be possible. We are carrying 8,000 civilians in sleep chambers aboard our ship, the New Horizon. We have been traveling for over 200 years from our home system and are looking for peaceful contact with any civilization that can help us. Taylor stared at the communication console as the implications of what he had just heard began to sink in. The beings inside the cylinder were claiming to be human, just like the people of the Empire, but they were from someplace called Earth, it was. Not in any Imperial database. They were also claiming to have been traveling for 2 centuries, which should be impossible for any known form of space travel. Captain, what are your orders? Carla asked as she continued to monitor the strange energy patterns coming from inside the object. Taylor realized that he was facing a situation that no Imperial officer had ever encountered before. These beings claimed to be human, but came from outside Imperial space and possessed technology that seemed both primitive and impossibly advanced at the same time. He needed to contact Commander Morrison immediately and let him know that this was no longer just a matter of intercepting an unknown object. Open a channel to the Dominion's edge, Taylor ordered as he prepared to make a report that would change the course of Imperial history. Commander Morrison needs to know that we are not dealing with aliens or rebels. We may have just made contact with another human civilization that claims to have traveled from outside our galaxy. Ellen Wright rushed through the corridors of the Dominion's edge, carrying her portable analysis equipment and feeling her excitement grow with every step she took toward the main laboratory. As the Empire's leading expert on alien biology, she had studied dozens of different species, but had never expected to be called in to analyze what appeared to be another human civilization. Commander Morrison had summoned her to the ship's research center immediately after receiving Captain Taylor's report about the transmission from the mysterious cylinder. The idea that humans could exist outside the Empire's territory was revolutionary enough, but the claim that these people had traveled from another galaxy was completely impossible according to everything science knew about space travel. Dr. Wright entered the laboratory and saw Commander Morrison standing with several other officers around a large display table that showed detailed scans of the object that called itself the New Horizon. The internal structure of the cylinder was unlike anything she had ever seen and seemed to combine primitive technology with capabilities that defied explanation. Dr. Wright, thank you for coming so quickly, Morrison said, as he gestured toward the analysis data streaming across the laboratory screens. We need you to examine the biological readings from this object and tell us what we are dealing with. Our sensors are detecting thousands of life forms inside, but the readings do not match any species in our database. Ellen moved to her workstation and began uploading the sensor data into her analysis computer. As a xenobiologist, she had developed techniques for studying alien life forms that had never been tested on humans from outside the Empire. The biological patterns appearing on her screen were familiar yet strange in ways that made her question her own expertise. Commander, these readings are extraordinary, Ellen said, as she highlighted different sections of the biological analysis. The life signs inside that cylinder are definitely human, but they show characteristics that I have never seen before in any Imperial population. Their bone density is much higher than normal, and their cardiovascular systems appear to be significantly more robust than ours. Morrison leaned over her shoulder as she continued to analyze the data that was streaming in from their deep penetration. Scanners. What does that mean in practical terms, Doctor? Ellen continued her analysis and felt her amazement grow as more detailed information appeared on her screens. Sir, these people have evolved under conditions that were much harsher than anything experienced by Imperial humans. Their bodies show adaptations to high-gravity environments, and their neural development patterns suggest they have dealt with extreme stress for generations. The laboratory door opened, and Dr. Richard Stone entered carrying a portable physics computer and looking more confused than Ellen had ever seen him. As the Empire's chief theoretical physicist, he was responsible for understanding how the universe worked according to the laws of science. Today, those laws were being challenged by technology that should not exist. Commander, I have completed my analysis of the New Horizons propulsion system, Stone said as he connected his computer to the main display. According to every principle of physics that we understand, this ship should not be able to move at all, much less travel at the speeds we recorded. Morrison turned his attention to the physics data that Stone was projecting onto the main screen. Explain what you mean, Doctor. Stone pointed to energy readings that showed the internal workings of the cylinder ship. Sir, the New Horizon appears to be powered by controlled fusion reactions that are no more advanced than early Imperial technology from centuries ago. The energy output from their power systems should barely be enough to maintain life support for their population, much less propel a ship of this size through space. Ellen looked up from her biological analysis with growing excitement as she began to understand what they were dealing with. Commander, there is something else that you need to know about these Earth humans. Their biological patterns suggest they have been in space for exactly as long as they claim. The cellular degradation patterns and genetic drift markers indicate a population that has been isolated from planetary conditions for over 2 centuries. Morrison felt his understanding of the situation shift as he realized the implications of what his experts were telling him. These people were not lying about their journey or using technology that the Empire could not understand. They had somehow accomplished something impossible using primitive science and determination that defied explanation. Professor Nancy Clark entered the laboratory carrying data tablets filled with information about the cultural transmissions they had intercepted from the New Horizon. As the Empire's expert on alien civilizations, she had been analyzing the historical references and cultural markers in the Earth humans' communications. Commander, I have been studying the cultural data from their transmissions, Clark said as she activated her analysis display. These people are definitely from outside our galaxy, and their historical records describe a planet called Earth that does not exist in any Imperial database. Their cultural development appears to be completely independent from Imperial civilization. Morrison gathered his experts around the main display table as they prepared to brief him on discoveries that would change Imperial understanding of what was possible in the universe. I need to know exactly what we are dealing with here. How did these people accomplish something that our best scientists consider impossible? Ellen returned to her biological data and pointed to cellular analysis that revealed the true nature of the Earth humans' journey. Commander, these people have been using suspended animation technology to survive their journey. Most of their population has been asleep for the entire trip while a small crew maintained their ship. The biological stress patterns show they have pushed their bodies and their technology to the absolute limits of survival. Stone supplemented Ellen's analysis with physics data that showed the true scope of what the Earth humans had accomplished. Sir, they have not actually achieved faster than light travel in the way that we understand it. Instead, they have been using time dilation effects from traveling at extremely high speeds for extended periods. From their perspective, the journey has taken 2 centuries, but they have actually traveled much further than should be possible. Morrison stared at the data displays as the full magnitude of what they were witnessing became clear. The Earth humans had not developed superior technology or discovered new laws of physics. Instead, they had accomplished something that Imperial civilization had never even attempted, because it required sacrifices that no one had been willing to make. Clark added cultural context that explained the motivation behind such an incredible journey. Commander, their historical records indicate that Earth was facing complete environmental collapse when they began their journey. These 8,000 people represent the last survivors of their entire civilization. They were willing to spend centuries traveling through space because staying on their dying planet would have meant extinction. Ellen looked at the biological data one more time and felt her respect for these unknown humans grow even stronger. Commander, the genetic diversity. Patterns in their population show careful selection for survival traits. These people did not just volunteer for this journey. They were specifically chosen because they had the best chance of surviving the trip and establishing a new civilization. Morrison realized that the Empire was not dealing with superior technology or alien invaders. They had encountered something far more remarkable, a human civilization that had faced the end of their world and responded with courage and determination that exceeded anything in Imperial history. The New Horizon represented not just a ship, but the hopes and dreams of an entire species that had refused to surrender in the face of extinction. "Get me Admiral Hayes immediately," Morrison ordered, as he prepared to make a report that would change Imperial policy toward these remarkable survivors. "We are not dealing with a threat or an unknown enemy. We have discovered something that could teach the Empire valuable lessons about what humans can accomplish when they refuse to give up." Admiral Lisa Hayes walked through the corridors of the Dominion's edge with a feeling of anticipation that she had not experienced since her early days as a young officer exploring unknown regions of space. The reports from Commander Morrison and his team of experts had described discoveries that challenged everything the Imperial Navy thought they knew about human capabilities and the limits of space travel. The main war room had been converted into a temporary research center where the most brilliant minds in the Empire worked to understand the implications of first contact with the Earth humans. Hayes had brought additional experts from the Imperial Science Academy, including specialists in physics, engineering, and cultural analysis, who could help evaluate this unprecedented situation. Dr. Richard Stone stood before a massive holographic display that showed the New Horizons' incredible journey across intergalactic space. As the Empire's leading theoretical physicist, he had spent his entire career studying the fundamental laws that govern space travel and energy production. Today, those laws were being challenged by a civilization that had accomplished the impossible, using technology that should not work. "Admiral, every principle of physics that we understand says this journey should have been impossible," Stone said as he manipulated the holographic display to show the energy calculations involved in the Earth Humans' voyage. The amount of energy required to accelerate a ship of this size to the velocities they achieved should exceed the total power output of a medium-sized star. Hayes studied the energy analysis and tried to understand how beings with primitive technology had overcome obstacles that stopped Imperial science from even attempting intergalactic travel. "Dr. Stone, how do you explain what they have accomplished?" Stone highlighted different sections of the energy data as he explained his analysis of the New Horizons propulsion system. "Admiral, these people did not overcome the energy requirements. They simply found a way to spread those requirements across an extended time period. Instead of trying to achieve faster than light travel, they maintained constant acceleration for decades, until relativistic effects allowed them to cross distances that would normally require centuries to traverse. Professor Nancy Clark had been, analyzing the cultural and historical data transmitted by the Earth humans, and had made discoveries that revealed the true scope of their sacrifice. Admiral, their historical records show that Earth's entire population was facing extinction due to environmental collapse and resource depletion. The 8,000 people aboard the New Horizon were selected from millions of volunteers who were willing to leave everything behind for the chance to save human civilization. Hayes felt a chill run down her spine as she realized the magnitude of what these people had sacrificed for their journey. Imperial citizens had never faced the complete destruction of their civilization and had never been forced to make choices between certain death and an uncertain future among unknown stars. Ellen Wright looked up from her biological analysis station, where she had been studying the genetic and physiological data from the Earth humans. Admiral, these people have been isolated from normal planetary conditions for over 2 centuries, and their bodies show adaptations that indicate they have pushed human biology to its absolute limits. Their cardiovascular systems have adapted to artificial gravity, and their bone density has increased to compensate for the stress of constant acceleration. Hayes walked to Ellen's station and examined the biological data that showed the physical cost of the Earth humans' journey. Dr. Wright, what does this tell us about their capabilities compared to Imperial humans? Ellen highlighted sections of the genetic analysis that revealed the true nature of the Earth humans' evolution. Admiral, these people are definitely human, but they have developed under conditions that forced rapid adaptation to extreme environments. Their neural development patterns show enhanced problem-solving abilities, and their stress response systems are far more robust than anything we see in Imperial populations. Commander Morrison entered the research center carrying communication transcripts from ongoing conversations with the Earthship. Admiral Colonel Martinez has provided additional information about their journey that explains some of the questions we have been asking. They are requesting permission to dock because their life support systems are beginning to fail after 2 centuries of operation. Hayes reviewed the communication transcripts and noted the calm professionalism in the Earth humans' requests for assistance. What is their current status, Commander? Morrison connected his portable computer to the main display and showed real-time sensor data from the New Horizon. Admiral, their ship is in remarkably good condition considering its age, but they are experiencing system failures that threaten their ability to maintain life support for their population. They have managed to keep 8,000 people alive for 2 centuries using technology that we would consider primitive. Dr. Stone returned to his physics analysis and pointed to engineering data that revealed the true genius behind the Earth humans' approach to space travel. Admiral, I have been studying their ship design, and it represents a completely different philosophy from Imperial engineering. Instead of building the most advanced ship possible, they built the most reliable ship possible and designed every system to operate for centuries without major maintenance. Hayes began to understand that the Earth humans had not achieved their incredible journey through superior technology, but through superior planning and willingness to accept risks that Imperial civilization would never consider. How long did they spend planning this expedition? Clark accessed historical data from the Earth transmissions and provided context for the scope of their preparation. Admiral, their records indicate they spent over 50 years developing the technology and selecting the population for this journey. They tested every system for decades and chose their colonists based on genetic markers that indicated the highest probability of surviving the trip and establishing a successful colony. Ellen added biological context that revealed the careful science behind the Earth human selection process. Admiral, the genetic diversity in their population shows that they understood the importance of maintaining a viable breeding population during their journey. They also selected for psychological traits that would help people cope with the isolation and stress of centuries in space. Hayes realized that she was looking at evidence of planning and sacrifice that exceeded anything in Imperial history. These people committed their entire civilization to a single desperate gamble for survival. Morrison nodded as he reviewed additional communication data from the New Horizon. Admiral Colonel Martinez has indicated that Earth is now completely uninhabitable and that the New Horizon carries the only remaining members of their species. They have no home to return to and are completely dependent on finding a new world that can support human life. Stone supplemented Morrison's report with technical analysis that revealed the challenges still facing the Earth humans. Admiral, their ship was designed for a one-way journey and lacks the fuel reserves necessary to search for a suitable planet. They will need assistance from the Imperial Navy if they are going to find a new home for their population. Hayes felt the weight of responsibility settle on her shoulders as she realized that the Empire held the fate of an entire human civilization in their hands. The Earth humans had accomplished something remarkable, but they were now completely vulnerable and dependent on Imperial assistance for their survival. Dr. Wright looked up from her analysis, station with excitement in her voice, as she made a discovery that revealed the true potential of cooperation between the two human civilizations. Admiral, these people have genetic markers and biological adaptations that could benefit Imperial populations. Their enhanced stress tolerance and cardiovascular efficiency could help Imperial colonists survive in harsh environments that we currently cannot settle. Hayes realized that the Earth humans represented not just a refugee population in need of assistance, but a potential source of knowledge and genetic diversity that could strengthen the Empire. What are you suggesting, Doctor? Wright highlighted genetic data that showed the complementary nature of Earth and Imperial human populations. Admiral, if we can successfully integrate these people into Imperial society, they could help us establish colonies and star systems that are currently too harsh for normal human settlement. Their biological adaptations, combined with Imperial technology, could open up new possibilities for expansion. Hayes made her decision based on both humanitarian concerns and the potential benefits to Imperial civilization. Commander Morrison, inform Colonel Martinez that we are granting permission for the New Horizon to dock with our ship. Prepare full diplomatic reception protocols and medical assistance for anyone who needs it. We are about to welcome 8,000 new citizens to the Calfarian Empire. The main docking bay of the Dominion's edge had been cleared and prepared for the most important first contact ceremony in Imperial history. Commander Morrison stood with his diplomatic team and medical personnel as they waited for the airlock, connecting the two ships to complete its sealing process. The primitive-looking docking mechanism from the New Horizon was a stark contrast to the advanced Imperial technology, but it had successfully linked the two vessels, despite being over 2 centuries old. Colonel Danny Martinez was the first person to step through the airlock and into the Imperial ship. He was a tall man in his 50s, with weathered features and gray hair that spoke of the tremendous responsibility he had carried during the long journey from Earth. His simple blue uniform looked almost ancient compared to the advanced materials and design of Imperial clothing, but his bearing showed the dignity of someone who had successfully completed an impossible mission. Behind Martinez came Dr. Helen Parker, who served as the expedition's chief scientist and had been responsible for maintaining the New Horizon's life support systems during their incredible journey. She was a woman in her 40s with intelligent eyes that immediately began studying the Imperial technology around her with obvious curiosity and professional interest. Captain Steve Adams followed Dr. Parker into the docking bay, and Morrison could see that he was the kind of engineer who understood machinery at an instinctive level. His hands showed the calluses and scars of someone who had spent decades maintaining equipment under difficult conditions, and his eyes showed the exhaustion of someone who had kept ancient systems operating far beyond their designed lifespan. Admiral, Hayes stepped forward to greet the Earth humans with the formal courtesy that Imperial protocol required for first contact situations. Colonel Martinez, I am Admiral Lisa Hayes of the Caltharian Imperial Navy. On behalf of the Empire, the first welcome. You and your people to our territory. We have many questions about your journey, and we hope that we can provide the assistance that you need. Martinez saluted in a style that was similar to Imperial military tradition, but showed subtle differences that reflected the independent development of Earth culture. Admiral Hayes, thank you for responding to our distress call and allowing us to dock with your ship. We have been traveling for over 200 years, and our vessel is finally reaching the end of its operational capability. My people need medical attention, and we are hoping to find a new home where we can establish a permanent settlement. Dr. Parker stepped forward, and Morrison could see the scientific curiosity in her eyes as she looked around the advanced Imperial docking bay. Admiral, we are very interested in learning about your civilization and sharing information about our own technology and discoveries. We have spent 2 centuries developing solutions to problems that most civilizations never face, and we believe that our knowledge could be useful to your people. Hayes gestured toward the conference room that had been prepared for the formal first contact meeting. Dr. Parker, we are equally interested in learning from your experiences. Our scientists are having difficulty understanding how your ship achieved the performance that we recorded during your approach to our territory. Captain Adams smiled with the tired satisfaction of an engineer who had accomplished something that everyone said was impossible. Admiral, I think there may be some misunderstanding about our capabilities. We have not developed faster than light travel or any other advanced propulsion technology. The New Horizon has been traveling through space using constant acceleration, at 1 gravity for the entire duration of our journey. Dr. Stone, who had joined the reception committee, looked confused as he tried to understand what Adams was telling them. Captain, what do you mean by constant acceleration? Our calculations show that your ship was traveling at velocities that approach light speed. Adams nodded as he began to explain the physics behind their incredible journey. Doctor, we have been accelerating at 1 gravity for the first half of our trip and decelerating at 1 gravity for the second half. The relativistic time dilation effects allowed us to cross intergalactic distances while experiencing only a fraction of the actual elapsed time. Morrison felt his understanding of this situation change completely as he realized what the Earth humans had accomplished. You mean that you have been traveling for 2 centuries from your perspective, but thousands of years have passed in normal space-time. Dr. Parker confirmed Morrison's understanding with obvious pride in what her people had achieved. Commander, that is exactly correct. We knew that our journey would take us far from home and that we could never return to Earth. We were willing to sacrifice everything, including our connection to our original civilization, because the alternative was the complete extinction of the human species. Ellen Wright, who had been studying the biological data from the Earth, humans looked amazed as she realized the implications of what they had accomplished. Dr. Parker, this means that your people have experienced evolutionary pressures that no other human population has ever faced. You have adapted to conditions that pushed human biology to its absolute limits. Helen Parker nodded as she explained the challenges that the Earth expedition had overcome during their journey. Dr. Wright, we have learned to live in artificial environments for generations, and our population has adapted to the stress of knowing that any major system failure could result in the death of our entire species. We have developed social structures and psychological coping mechanisms that allowed us to maintain a stable civilization during centuries of isolation. Admiral Hayes began to understand that the Earth humans represented something far more valuable than advanced technology or military capability. Colonel Martinez, your people have accomplished something that demonstrates human potential in ways that the Empire has never explored. You have shown that determination and careful planning can overcome obstacles that superior technology cannot address. Martinez looked around the Imperial docking bay, and Morrison could see both gratitude and determination in his expression. Admiral, our people have survived this journey because we refused to accept extinction as inevitable. We were willing to sacrifice our connection to our home world and spend generations traveling between galaxies because we believed that human civilization was worth preserving no matter what the cost. Captain Adams added engineering context that revealed the true scope of what the Earth expedition had accomplished. Admiral, we designed every system on the New Horizon to operate for centuries without major repairs or replacement parts. We chose reliability over performance and simplicity over sophistication because we knew that our lives would depend on technology that had to work perfectly for longer than any machine had ever been expected to operate. Hayes realized that the Empire was witnessing a demonstration of human capability that challenged their understanding of what was possible when people were willing to make ultimate sacrifices for the survival of their species. Colonel Martinez, on behalf of the Caltharian Empire, the first formally offer asylum and citizenship to all members of your expedition. We have worlds that can provide homes for your people, and we would be honored to learn from your experiences. Dr. Parker looked excited as she began to understand the possibilities for cooperation between the two human civilizations. Admiral, we would be very interested in sharing our knowledge of long-term space travel and closed system life support with your scientists. We have also developed genetic preservation techniques and social structures that could be useful for Imperial colonization efforts. Morrison realized that the arrival of the New Horizon marked the beginning of a new era for human civilization. The Earth humans had proven that determination and sacrifice could accomplish what advanced technology could not, and their integration into Imperial society would strengthen both civilizations. Hayes made the final decision that would determine the future relationship between Earth and Imperial humans. Dr. Parker, I am authorizing full integration protocols for your people. We will provide medical care for anyone who needs it, and we will work together to find suitable worlds where your population can establish permanent settlements. The Empire has much to learn from people who accomplished what you have achieved. As the two human civilizations began the process of integration, it became clear that the New Horizon represented more than just a refugee ship carrying survivors from a dead world. It was proof that human determination could overcome any obstacle, and that the willingness to sacrifice everything for future generations was the most powerful force in the universe.